So there's this conversation that you've probably heard before, that men benefit more from marriage than women. Now, let me just say this. I used to consider myself a feminist. I don't anymore. That was a while ago. And it's not because I don't think feminism is a good thing. I know the suffrage and the movement has done a lot of things, and a lot of things have changed because of the people who actually sacrificed a lot of things to get there. Now, if you want to hear my real opinion about feminism, you have to come and meet me in my house, which you don't know where it is. Please don't try to find it. I'm not trying to say that you should find my house. What I'm trying to say is that I don't think it's necessary this conversation, but I just want you to know that I used to believe in what we call feminism. Now I can't say it without having this long context conversation, because I think there's a nuance between what people purport is feminism and what it actually is. You know what makes sense? Maybe it doesn't. Anyhow. So I love marriage. Like, I really do. I probably should start the video by just saying that I love marriage. I was married before, got divorced, went through a period of whatever it was I was going through. And my wife now, when I think about that statement that men benefit more from marriage than women, I'm tempted to be like, you're probably right. Because sometimes I think that I gained so much from being with her. But here's the part that is difficult, is that if you want to go with that statement, it has to be a comparison. Like, okay, what do men gain? What do women gain? And then you're like, oh, men gain more than women. Now, I can tell you that I love marriage and I'm getting a lot from marriage. But I'm also pretty confident that my wife loves marriage and she's getting a lot from marriage. Because if I say that, oh, I have an advantage, I'm getting all these things, and I look at her and she's losing, then I have made the biggest mistake and I've misunderstood what God called marriage to be. That sentence cannot exist without both people gaining better. I won't say equally. Here's why. Depending on what stage you are in your marriage, you're evolving. Maybe in the beginning, somebody is helping the other person evolve in one area. It could be their finances, it could be their spiritual life, it could be their cultural life, whatever it is. One spouse is teaching the other spouse, they're learning from them. Two are better than one. So you're both growing in that area. One person might be ahead in one area, the other person is here. So yes, you could be in a situation where, oh, as a man or as a woman, you're gaining more in this particular season of your marriage. There comes a point where you're at the same level, or you've just understood that, hey, listen, you're just good at this, you're better at this particular thing. Let's just let you do it, all right? You can teach me, I can learn a little bit, but we both know that the way that God made you, you're just better at this whole situation. So let's just continue. Let's just carry on, all right? So the reason why that statement cannot hang on is because there will come a point where you have to evolve. It could be that you get children. It could be that you get a house. It could be that you travel. Careers change. Careers evolve. You go to school. Somebody gets sick. You lose parents. Like, there are so many milestones that would happen in a marriage that would require people to rise to different levels of ability, to different levels of experience. So that statement cannot stand if you're both growing, if you're both learning from each other. And I'm very passionate about this again because I love marriage. I'm going to get somewhere with this. The idea that men don't want marriage, or that most men don't want marriage, I think is preposterous. And I think that idea happens because men don't talk about how they feel about marriage, what it looks like for them, right? What they experience in marriage. We hear a lot of bad ideas, bad experiences of people who, oh, they got married, they had a terrible experience, their wife did this, their husband did that. And my wife and I usually joke that the people who are happiest in relationships are not on social media. So is it true? I don't know. Maybe it's not. But I can see, just based on my own experience, how the more I enjoy spending time with my wife married, the less I have time to go online and say anything. So we just have this bubble where we are just happy. We're just enjoying ourselves. We're doing a thing, we're working on projects, doing our values, planning our future. And there's no time to go and say, oh, red pill this, feminism this, whatever it is, blue pill, any pill. There's no time for that. And so I feel the need to really come and make this video or this podcast so that I can listen to this to say that there are people out there, men, who are not just only happy in their marriages, they are thriving. They are thriving and they cannot picture a life without their spouse. I'm one of those people. And I went through a divorce. And I went through a dark period where I should have normally rejected marriage for all what it was. But here's my own experience. Here's what I think happens. When you do marriage the way it was supposed to be done, you would thrive. And this video was supposed to be titled, here's a title, I have my notes here. If you do marriage right, you'll have heaven on earth. If you don't, ... What does marriage right look like? Listen, I'm not about to become a relationship guru, marriage guru. We just celebrated 1 year a few months ago. It's not that much. I don't have a lot of experience. But here's what I know. Two people coming together have two different experiences, two different contexts, two different ways of being raised, two different parents. There's a lot of differences. There's so many differences that if you don't intentionally create room for understanding, for growth, and a foundation that you can both stand on, you will fail. I know this because in my first marriage, that foundation, which I now know to be the biggest missing piece, the spiritual foundation of a marriage wasn't there. And so the mistake that was repaired in this marriage was that when I came to meet my wife, I was ready and I was walking the path of knowing Jesus. I was already prepared of, all right, if I'm going to be a husband, this is the kind of husband I'm going to be, not because of who I'm going to be, but because who has made me to be that husband. So I was coming into the relationship, into the marriage, into the conversation, knowing that it's not because of how beautiful she is, which is amazing. She's beautiful, both inside and outside. It's not because of who she is, but because of who I am in Christ. I am going to present myself as the husband that God has called me to be, to take care of his daughter. So it wasn't a conversation of, society, salary, feminism. It was, what is God calling me to do as a husband? To love your wife like Christ loved the church, so, presenting her to yourself as a holy and clean sacrifice. You probably know the verse. If you know it, put in the comments. But when you think of that verse, right? Husbands, love your wives. Wives, submit to your husband. We talk about, wives, submit to your husband. Wives, submit to your husband. There's also submit to each other in love. Talk to each other with love. So, long story short, when you look at marriage from God's perspective, it's impossible to miss having a heaven on earth. I think, and maybe I'm not the one who came up with this idea, probably a pastor said it, but marriage was built so that humans could have the experience of what it means to be loved by God, to have that heaven on earth. Because when you have a husband who is submitted to God, you as a wife, you have no problem submitting to that man. And if you have a wife who loves you, who submits to you, right? Who is listening to you, who encourages you, when they say, when a man finds a wife, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtain favors from the Lord. You know what? There are the past year of my life, the things that we have been able to do together, I know that I will not be able to do them by myself, both spiritually and physically and financially, because the presence of a supportive partner, husband or wife, transforms not just your psychology, your biology, your emotions, your finances. Every area of your life is improved when you have somebody who reflects the kind of love that can only be gotten from God. So I say this to say that doing marriage right, from my perspective, as one who follows Jesus, requires that you put Jesus in the middle. That's it. Now, you don't have to believe me. But what I know is that people who struggle in their marriages, usually, if you look at it critically, that spiritual foundation is missing. The basis of the marriage is either, they look handsome, they have a lot of money, the family has to connect. And so there's not usually the happiness. Now you could thrive, you could survive for 50, 60 years. You could even die in a marriage that you're not happy in. But if you want to enjoy your marriage, if you want to be able to make a YouTube video where you tell people that marriage is nice as a husband, you have to build your marriage on a foundation that is beyond your physical attraction, beyond your psychological makeup, beyond your cultural understanding. You have to be able to build that marriage on Christ. That's it. It means you have to know your word, you have to follow God, you have to be able to understand who God has called you to be and the kind of husband that you've called to be, and how to lead your wife and how to manage her like the weaker vessel. When you hear the word weaker vessel, we think of strength. It's not that. But this is not a Bible study. This is just to say that there. Marriage is beautiful. Marriage is good. Marriage is wonderful. I'm enjoying it. And I know that I'm not enjoying it because I'm doing something too different. I'm enjoying it because of a couple of things. One, I realized after my first marriage that there was no spiritual foundation, and I doubled down on becoming a spiritual person. And by spiritual, I mean a Christian, a Christ follower, very specifically. I don't just mean spiritual. I've doubled down on following Jesus. That's one. Number two, one thing that I think people miss about marriage is that they don't have good examples. They don't have good models. And if you don't have a good model, you don't know what to copy. So I've been lucky that in my marriage now, I have pastors, people that I see whose marriages are wonderful, people I can ask questions. I can talk to them about marriage. They can advise me, they can counsel me, they can share with me things that normally I would not know if I was just going by myself. So the lack of mentorship, the lack of models, the lack of examples to copy is one of those reasons why people struggle in their marriage, because you can't just figure this thing out. When you go to school, you don't just get to school and then just put you there and then you're figuring it out. Like somebody said, marriage is one of those few things where they give you a certificate and then expect you to go and study after that. Like you just get a marriage certificate, but then you have to go and figure it out later on. So how do you expect to be able to have a good marriage when you have no model? So you need a model. So you need to find people who are genuinely happy around you. Find people who have that spiritual foundation to learn from them. Right. And number three, the last thing that I would say about building a good marriage is that you need to also be able to avoid the information, the people, and the things that derail you from the ideal marriage. It's not just about getting good information. It's also about avoiding information. I think it's Charlie Munger who somebody was talking about how if you just avoid making bad decisions, you're going to be successful. So sometimes, probably all the times, it's not just about doing the right thing, marrying the right person, saying the right thing, all that. It's also about not doing the wrong thing. The way that you react in conflict. What do you not say when your spouse is upset? How do you not respond to their emotions? How do you not react? Where do you not go? What do you stop doing? So it's not just about everything to do. It's also about what the things that you should not do. It's even more important to know what to avoid than to know what to do. So I hope this is helpful. I'll probably talk more about this in the future, but in the meantime, that's it. All right. I love marriage. I love my wife, as you can probably tell. And I think that many more men and women would have a lot better lives if, one, they build a spiritual foundation for themselves. Two, look for models, mentors who had the spiritual foundation on what marriage looked like. And three, figure out the things to avoid doing to make sure that you have the right marriage, the way Jesus intended it. I hope that helps. Peace.